probably read Mark Twain in school, and I bet you forgot almost everything. You might remember a kid tricking his friends into painting a fence or a raft on a river. But that's it. The plots are a blur, and you don't remember the characters' names. But what if I told you the most important lessons were basically a secret? What if the real lessons were hidden in the jokes? Mark Twain wasn't just telling stories, he was giving you a cheat code for life, and you didn't even realize it. Today, we're unpacking the 3 most insane and timeless life hacks that America's greatest comedian left for us. Explore 3 secret lessons that control how you think, even now. 1. Having the guts to break the rules. 2. Seeing through all the lies and hypocrisies. And 3. Unstoppable self-reliance you need to win in a crazy world. This isn't just for English class, this is a survival kit for your life, left by one of the smartest people who ever lived. First up, this is maybe the craziest and most important lesson Mark Twain ever taught. It's about real courage. We're always taught that courage is being fearless, but Twain had a way better definition. He said courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear. It's a war you fight inside your own head, not some big show you put on for everyone else. And you will not find a better example of this than a kid on a raft. Huck Finn lived in a world that told him helping a runaway slave was the ultimate sin that would send him to everlasting fire. Literally every person and every rule, church, law, every owner told him this was wrong. So, when he's on a raft with Jim, a man who is technically someone else's property, Huck is completely tormented. He feels like the worst person in the world. This leads to one of the most extreme moments in any book ever. Huck decides he has to do the right thing and writes a letter to turn Jim in. For 1 second, he feels relieved. He followed the rules. He gave in, but then he stops. He remembers his entire journey with Jim. He remembers Jim being kind and protecting him. He remembers Jim saying he was the best friend he ever had. Huck looks at the letter. He thinks about heaven and hell, and then he makes his choice. All right, then go to hell, he says, and he rips the letter to pieces. This isn't superhero courage. This is something crazier. It's the courage to look at your entire society in the face and say, you're wrong, choosing your own heart over the insane rules of a broken world. Twain called this being unsound, and he thought it was awesome. He once said, curious that physical courage should be so common in the world, and moral courage so rare. Huck's decision is the rarest, most insane bravery there is. The lesson you actually learn from this is the power of your own conscience. In a world full of peer pressure and online hate mobs, Huck's story is the ultimate guide. It shows you that the most heroic thing you can do is make a quiet choice to go against the flow, to be unsound when the world has lost its mind. It gives you permission to say, I see your rules, but my heart knows they're wrong. But having courage is useless if you can't see the truth. That brings us to lesson number 2, how to spot every hypocrite and scammer from a mile away. Mark Twain was a master at this, and his weapon was comedy. He believed, against the assault of laughter, nothing can stand. Jokes to destroy the dumbest rules in society, religion, and politics. The most legendary example, of course, is the fence painting scene in Tom Sawyer. It seems like a simple, funny story. Tom gets punished and has to whitewash a giant fence on a perfect Saturday. He's miserable. His friends come by to make fun of him. But then Tom does something genius. He completely flips the script, pretends that painting isn't a horrible chore, but an exclusive once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He starts painting like he's the greatest artist in the world. When his friends ask if they can try, he shuts them down. I reckon there ain't one boy in 1,000, maybe 2,000, that can do it the way it's got to be done, he says. He literally discovered a cheat code for human psychology. As Twain wrote, in order to make a man or a boy covet a thing, it is only necessary to make the thing difficult to attain. In minutes, the same boys who came to laugh at him were trading him their most valuable stuffed apple, a kite, a dead rat for the privilege of doing his work. Tom ended the day with a mountain of treasure and a perfectly painted fence, and he barely lifted a finger. So what's the lesson? You learn to see the game pressure. You learn that value is just something people make up. Why does a purse cost thousands of dollars? Why do people wait in line for 10 hours for sneakers? Because just like Tom Sawyer, companies have tricked you into thinking that stuff is special and hard to get. They made a boring chore look like the coolest thing in the world. Twain uses this to expose how society works. Will do anything to be part of the in-group. You see the same thing in Huckleberry Finn with two families who bring guns to church while listening to a sermon about brotherly love. It's insane, and after you forget the plot, the fence lesson stays with you forever. It's a filter for seeing the world. You learn to ask why you want things. Do you actually want it, or did someone trick you into it? Twain gives you a superpower, skepticism, and it's the ultimate defense against all the fake hype in our world today. So if the world is full of rules you have to break and games you have to see through, how are you supposed to survive? This is Twain's final and most practical lesson, becoming 100 self-reliant. Not just talking about money, I'm talking about being so mentally independent that no one can control you. He put this idea everywhere in his work, but he said it best in his quotes. He asked, "What is the chief end of man?" Was insane to get his own approval. That's it. That's the whole game. Twain was saying that real happiness can never come from other people. A man cannot be comfortable without his own approval, he wrote. It is the ultimate self-reliance. You are your own judge. This came from the fact that Twain hated conformity. His most famous quote is a direct challenge to you. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. He's not saying to be different, just to be different. He's warning you not to be mentally lazy. He's begging you to check if your beliefs are actually yours, or just something you copied from the crowd. In our world of social media and algorithms feeding you opinions, this is more important than ever. The pressure to just agree with everyone is huge. Twain teaches you to fight back. He was a huge believer in learning outside of school. Once joking, "I have never let my schooling interfere with my education." For Twain, real learning came from experience, from watching people, and from thinking for yourself. This level of self-reliance makes everything else possible. You can't defy a crowd if you're desperate for their likes. Can't see how stupid the world's games are if you're dying to play them. In Tom Sawyer, you see it in all of his crazy schemes. In Huckleberry Finn, Huck's insane journey to listen to his own gut instead of the screaming mob, the lesson that sticks is mental freedom. Students learn that their own mind is the most valuable thing they will ever control. Don't let the world live in your head rent-free. Build your own values, trust what you see with your own eyes, and seek your own approval. In a world that is always trying to make you just like everyone else, Gospel of Self-Reliance isn't just a lesson, it's a survival guide. So, what do we really learn from Mark Twain? We learn that true courage is listening to your own heart when the rest of the world is screaming at you. We learn that hypocrisy is just a game, and you win by realizing you don't even have to play. And we learn that the only approval, the only like, that will ever truly matter is your own. The stories might fade, truths are forever. Twain doesn't give you simple answers. He gives you something 1,000,000,000 times better. A new pair of eyes, a way to see the world in all its insane, tragic, and hilarious glory. He gives you the tools to win in a world that makes no sense, and he does it with a smile. His honesty, his humor, and his belief in the individual is why he is the GOAT, and why his lessons are still changing lives today. Peak Razor. Let's build productivity systems that win daily.